History remembers empires at their greatest extent. We mark the moment when borders stretched farthest, when maps showed dominion over the most territory. But empires rarely know when they have reached their limit. In the summer of 17 AD, Roman legions stood at the shores of the Persian Gulf to the north. They held Britain to the south, the sands of North Africa to the west. The Atlantic, the Mediterranean had become what Romans called it, Mare Nostrum, our sea. No empire before had controlled so much of the known world. Yet this moment of maximal expansion was also something else entirely. It was the beginning of a retreat that would never truly stop, the high water mark, the turning point no one recognized as it happened. This is the story of Rome at 17 AD, when the empire reached its greatest size, and unknowingly, its greatest fragility. To understand this moment, we must understand the man who created it, Trajan. A soldier's emperor, a general who believed expansion was Rome's destiny. In 101 AD, he conquered Dacia, modern-day Romania, after 6 years of brutal mountain warfare. Its wealth poured into Rome. Trajan's column, still standing today, tells the story in marble relief. But Dacia was only the beginning. In 173 AD, Trajan made a decision that would test Rome's limits. He would invade Parthia, Rome's great eastern rival for generations. The campaign was a military achievement unlike any in Roman history. Trajan's forces swept through Armenia, then turned south into the Parthian heartland. City after city fell. In 117 AD, Trajan took Sisyphon, the Parthian capital itself. Imagine that moment: Roman soldiers standing in the palace of their greatest enemy. The Parthian king fled. Trajan declared new provinces across Mesopotamia and Assyria. By early 117 AD, Roman forces reached the Persian Gulf. Trajan stood at the shore and reportedly said he wished he were younger, so he could sail to India as Alexander had attempted. On the map, Rome had never been larger. From the Atlantic to the Persian Gulf, nearly 5 million square kilometers, perhaps 70 million people. At the time, no one understood what this meant. But history rarely moves in straight lines. Even as Trajan celebrated, the empire was fracturing. In the newly conquered territories, rebellions erupted. The Parthians regrouped and attacked supply lines in Judea. Another rebellion exploded, not just there, but across the eastern Mediterranean, in Cyprus, in Egypt, in Cyrenaica. Rome suddenly faced multiple insurgencies across thousands of kilometers, and Trajan himself was dying. In August of 117 AD, as the empire reached its greatest extent, Trajan suffered a stroke and died before reaching Rome. He had added more territory than anyone since Augustus, but he left behind an empire that was overstretched and uncertain of its future. The answer arrived in the form of Hadrian. Trajan's adopted son became emperor immediately. Within days, he made a decision that shocked Rome. He would abandon Trajan's conquests, Mesopotamia, Assyria, Armenia, the provinces that had cost so much blood. Hadrian gave them up. He pulled the legions back to the Euphrates. He made peace with Parthia. Rome would never expand again. Some called it cowardice, but Hadrian understood something Trajan had not fully grasped. The empire could not hold everything. Expansion had reached its natural limit, not because there were no more lands to conquer, but because Rome lacked the resources to control what it had already taken. And so Hadrian turned to defense. He built walls in Britain, across northern England, a stone barrier 73 miles long along the Rhine and Danube, permanent fortifications. These walls were not symbols of strength, they were admissions of limits. Rome had reached its maximum size. It would spend the next 3.5 centuries trying to hold what it had. From the perspective of history, 117 AD was a fulcrum point. Everything before it was expansion, 4 centuries of growth. Everything after it was maintenance, adaptation, and eventually retreat. The empire did not collapse immediately, endured for generations, but it never expanded again. The borders of 117 AD became the maximum. Each new province required soldiers to hold it, administrators to govern it, infrastructure to connect it. The cost mounted, the returns diminished, distant territories consumed more than they produced. And there was something deeper too, something about human ambition and its limits. Every great power faces this moment, the point where expansion must stop, where the dream of limitless growth meets the reality of finite resources. Rome reached that point in around 17 AD. Trajan had dreamed of India. Hadrian built walls that shift, from offense to defense, from ambition to consolidation. To find the next chapter of Roman history, empires rise because they are pregnant. They expand because their systems work, but expansion creates its own. The larger the empire, the harder to defend. The longer the supply lines, the more vulnerable they become. Eventually, every empire reaches the moment Rome reached in 1117 AD, the moment where taking more costs more than it returns. History does not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So we return to where we began. The summer of 1117 AD, Roman soldiers at the Persian Gulf, Trajan dying, Hadrian making the decision to pull back. At the time, few understood what was happening. They saw tactics and politics. They debated honor and strategy. But time reveals what contemporaries cannot see. 1117 AD was the peak, the highest point, the moment before gravity reasserts itself. Rome did not know it was beginning a long decline. The empire was still strong, its army still victorious, its city still magnificent. Decline is rarely visible to those living through it. But the borders of 1117 AD became a marker, the moment when human ambition reached as far as it could, and no farther. The legions never again stood at the Persian Gulf. The dream of reaching India faded into memory and myth. What remained was the hard work of holding what had been won, of defending, of adapting, of surviving. And in that, perhaps, there is a lesson not just about empires, but about human endeavor itself, that reaching the maximum is not the end of the story, but what comes after. The acceptance of limits is just as important as the crime. History moves forward, but it never truly lets go of the past. And sometimes, when we look at maps showing Rome at its greatest extent, we are not just seeing borders. We are seeing the moment an empire stopped dreaming of more and began the long process of learning to live with enough. This decision would outlive everyone involved. The world before this moment was not the same afterward.